if lava bit went down, then why the fuck wouldn't that?
All right.
So,
1 second. We are actually live now. Uh,
oh,
we're
sweet.
we're gonna be live with this broadcast. I just started it. John, would you like to give an introduction of yourself, if you could, please?
I don't know, man. Like a rap introduction. I mean, find me on the fucking internet. My handle's I shall.
Yeah.
Just find me online. If you can't find me online, then don't talk to me.
Gotcha. That works. But previously we were talking about Snowden, and you brought up the point how he's being criminalized, right?
Yeah, yeah.
For the
What?
Espionage Act.
Mm-hmm.
Oops, sorry. Let me mute that. Uh, so when we're talking about this, right? So they're criminalizing him, but at the same point, why are they not charging people like Bush and Obama for war crimes? They want
Well,
to charge him for espionage, but not charge them for war crimes.
well, yeah. Like I was telling you, it's like it's just destroy the character, destroy the character.
Mm.
You know, Assange. You know, if they can destroy him, they just keep bringing him, and he's the focal point of it. Then you lose the focal point of what the actual evidence is, and the way that we're manipulated now by the media. It's just sent out that these are bad people. These are bad people. Like saying Snowden is working with the Russians.
Mm.
You know, he gave this stuff to journalists and then essentially got rid of everything. I mean, if you really look into it, he got rid of everything. He don't have access to these things anymore. He did what he was supposed to do.
Yeah.
You know, they do things that are so out of line. Like the Ecuadorian president, his fucking plane gets grounded. That's never happened before in history because they thought he was on there. So those heavily guarded secrets, are they heavily guarded secrets or are they hidden criminal, things that we needed to see? I don't care if he's charged with the Espionage Act or whatever. I believe that he's innocent. He's a whistleblower. He's not necessarily innocent, but he's a whistleblower. He did everything he was supposed to do. He gave it to journalists. He gave it to everybody, that he was supposed to, and let them decide what the, people should see. But, we're not looking at the information, and credit to WikiLeaks. I was watching WikiLeaks doing these dumps, and it was a lot different than any other dumps before, because we were getting packages of these emails to the point where we could actually read them before the next ones came out. When everybody was just dumping stuff 5-10 years ago, it was everything, and it was so overwhelming that you couldn't read it all. Like my boy right here, Stratford, we couldn't read all them dumps fast enough, and people were already saying, that Stratford was a joke, and so was WikiLeaks for, taking it, seriously. But look, he's in jail, so obviously there's something pretty serious in there.
Yeah. And then taking that into consideration, what the media, they're quick to push to people and criminalize whistleblowers, but at the same point, you got to take into consideration the drones. When they would splash, one terrorist, you'd see like 10 other people that were civilians around them just to take out one terrorist. That's murder.
Well, I mean, you got a lot of people, when I have this argument with them, they got to see the reversal role. What if we weren't the ones with all the high-tech toys? What if the Middle East had the high-tech toys and, there was a bad guy in your neighborhood and nobody really knew, he kept to himself or whatnot, and all of a sudden, boom, your city gets shelled and your kids are in, the math of, or, the aftermath of it, they're dead. I would dedicate my life to getting back at the people that did that, like I feel like any person would. I mean, maybe if we just, left them alone. I mean, it may sound barbaric, but at least let them fight it out until there's at least one power that we can declare war against instead of, you know, a war on a noun.
Yeah.
Like what, you know, like the war on terror. Like, what's the end game in that? You know, what happens when we get to terror? You know, is it now a war on, you know, horror? Like, it's never ending.
Yep.
If you have an actual state power, let them fight it out, and whoever rises to power is the one that you actually declare war with so that you can end it properly. That's just my opinion.
No, no, I hear you. That which leads
We
me.
shouldn't be we shouldn't be fighting each other at all to begin with. We
Yep.
should all just get along.
Yep. I agree. But that leads me to my next question, which is one of the topics that you told me that you want to talk about. So, if you take into consider statistics, it's more likely for you to get killed by a police officer than it is to get killed by a terrorist. What is your perception on police brutality?
Well, I think when I watch police brutality, I'm actually trying to write an article on it right now, so I can throw this off of you. What I'm looking at is the fraternal order of police sounds a little outdated to me. I think that that's something that should be gotten rid of. Now, do I believe that they should be able to unionize? Yes. Do I believe that they should be able to do everything they need to do wage-wise? Yes. I don't know a single union that protects you from killing somebody. And when you have a name like fraternal order and you look at fraternities, brotherhood, them first, that's pretty fucking scary. So what I would do is I would go ahead and let them be union, but also, you know, go ahead and they need to get insurance policies as far as I'm concerned. And people will argue with me, but you know what? Anesthesiologists work with the public every day, and they can take somebody's life at any moment, and they have insurance policies. And what this actually does is it lets the people like Tamir Rice's family have a shot in court instead of an endless fund from, you know, FOP lawyers that can drag it on, put in grand jury. No, this actually brings accountability to the officer because now he's responsible for his actions. He doesn't just get put on administrative leave and let the lawyers figure it out. He has to now stand trial. Maybe he only has $1 million or $2 million in this insurance. Well, that's a lot easier for Tamir Rice's family. Even though it's a lot of money, it's a lot easier for them to fight that instead of having, you know, to me, a fraternal order. That just sounds crazy. But in my opinion, get rid of the FOP. They have insurance policies. They're just like an anesthesiologist in my mind. And if they are going to pull the trigger, they're going to think about it.
So in a way, to reiterate that is they've sort of over the years gained a sort of gang mentality.
Well, yeah, it's a fraternal order. It's a brotherhood. You're in it. Everybody in the brotherhood protects each other. So that's why you don't hear, like, you know, when you look at police brutality now and you have, like, cops that are doing bad things, but then you have cops that say, well, there's good cops. Okay. Well, when do I get to hear from y'all? When do I get to hear you guys say that that shit was fucked up what happened? You don't ever hear that. You know why? It's fraternal order. You don't turn your back on your brother.
Yeah.
And that's not the way it is. It's protect and serve the citizens. It's not protect your brother because he fucked up.
Yeah. Which in a way they were supposed to be paid by us, which that was sort of used to be an insurance policy, right?
Yeah.
That we were the ones paying them, that we were their bosses. But now they get donations from corporations, shit like that.
Oh, and us too. Us
Yep.
too. You got that big ass sticker on the back of your car, and what's that supposed to do? What's the big fucking joke about those things? Is that you can buy this sticker, and when a police officer pulls you over, you're part of it because you donated, and you'll get out of that ticket. That's the stigma of it.
Yeah. You know, I'm gonna bring history into this real quick. A long time ago, the Templars, right? They made, since my picture is a Templar Knight, they did, you know, some bad things, you know. They actually had this thing, a writ, which got rid of your sins. You paid to get rid of your sins. in a way, that's the same thing. We are paying them to let us off of certain crimes. Which crimes and equality and justice is about equality and equity. But we're not seeing that anymore. It's more about the money, right?
Yeah, it's all about everything's about the money. That's 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 the worst part about our society right now. There's no love. There's no anything. There's when the biggest businessmen go into a meeting, it's not oh well we're gonna do good business. It's how can I fuck that guy the most
Yeah.
and get the most out of him. It's actually quite sad.
It is. I agree. Well, what is your perception on going back to whistleblowers? How do you feel? Uh, that Edward Snowden and Hammond and Manning were justified in their actions.
Because they're exposing crime. If you expose shit and everything's in order, why you wouldn't do it? Something's pushing these guys. They're seeing things that they don't want to see. Like, you know, I would say almost Chelsea Manning just straight out confessed. They have the log of it. I mean, to sit there and say, I can't believe I'm confessing this to you, and confining in somebody, asking what you should do. Anytime you're at that point, then you have to speak up. And I mean, what's being done to them is horrible, but they also know that it was necessary. I mean, I don't want to live in England. I go downtown now and I can see cameras everywhere. Like, I don't want to be, that's why my face is covered. I don't want to be, a target to anybody, other than they judge me on my merit.
Yeah.
That's it.
But speaking of that, what's your perception on what more people could do? How can they help out more?
How can people help out more?
Yeah. Whether or not they're part of Anon or anything like that. Anybody watching recently awakened to the BS?
Well, I mean, not a lot of people like to hear it, but there's not going to be a revolution or anything that's going to be televised, until 20 million people are out in the street across the United States of America. You're never going to see a change. You're going to see somebody back off and then sneak it into another piece of legislation, and it's going to happen anyway. You got FISA courts, you got all these different things that make people just disappear. And until everybody's like, we're sick of this shit. I mean, look at Egypt. Everybody gives Egypt a whole bunch of shit for the uprisings and stuff, but a lot of Anons were cool with that because it was the first time that a people actually told the government that you're gonna fear us instead of us fear you. And it was, I think, was the first time in America where we actually seen a country do that, but because of the media we have, it was touted as something horrible. But what Mubarak was actually doing to the people was horrible. I mean, they shut their internet off. I mean, I mean,
Yeah.
when it's dark, nothing good is happening when it's dark.
Yeah. And that's why they always show in, movies when aliens attack, they get rid of your communications first. It's the same reason why, pigeons were used and stuff like that. And all those encoded messages during war are important. If you can't give orders to your soldiers or to other people and communicate, you can't get anything done.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just think that they're all getting a bad rap. And, as much as like the hacking and how, cool that everybody might think that is, I mean, it's super dangerous. I mean, And a lot of the DNC people are claiming Russian hacks and blah 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 blah. But really, I mean, the DNC were that was leaked. There wasn't no big hack. That mostly, like, I would say 70% of that shit was leaked, and the dude got shot for it. I mean, you know, somebody's got those 30,000 missing emails, but who gives a shit? We know that bitch is a criminal, but in the same thing, they're all fucking criminals.
Yeah. Well,
I see we got somebody new.
Yeah, speaking of that, we've just got a new joiner to the chat. Well, your name on here is Echelon.
I am I'm Oscar Knight.
Oscar Knight.
It's a horrible alias for now. That'll change.
All right. Well, Oscar Knight, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Well, I've been a non for, I don't know, 5 years, something like that. Got disillusioned when I figured out what really happened at Fallujah. I was thinking about going into the military, and that blew me right out of the water, and I just kind of never looked back. I'm basically the Anon that does everything except hack.
You're needed, bub. Best believe that. You're fucking needed. There's people out there that need help.
There's certainly a big gap in Anon when it comes to understanding politics and economics. There's a lot of things like that. So, when we say there's room for anybody, we really mean it. Especially if we're gonna take change in a non-peaceful way, we're gonna need people that understand this stuff better than our government does. And I've found out from personal experience, it's really not that hard.
You just got to research it, right, and read it. You actually have to do your due diligence.
Basically, just not be a hooligan.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, for anybody out there that's, doing the Anon stuff, the activism part of it, I see a lot of things that people are trying to do, and then they go to do it, and, there's, nobody shows up. Well, the biggest part of it is follow through. It's all about follow through. There was a guy that, I do op helping hands with, we feed homeless people or whatnot. It started out for the first probably 5 months, me and him. And we would fucking promote the shit out of this, and then all of a sudden we have 4 people. All of a sudden we had 8 people. It's because people were starting to believe in what we were doing. So follow through to me is like the biggest thing that you can do as an Anon being like in the activist role.
Certainly, you got to lead by example. Running your mouth is something that a lot of people do, and certainly there's a very important function for people like trolls and everybody whose direct function is, just talking. But if you're talking about doing any type of ops or anything like that, something that takes a little bit more than that, absolutely have to follow through. And I would say go ahead and do it before you even talk about it, if you can. You got to show people you're about it.
And also, great ideas help. Great ideas help. We did our op helping hands for a while, and just some guy out of nowhere, mentioned doing haircuts for him, and we did it, and it took off, and a lot more people showed up, and a lot more people were helping, and this was off of a guy that we had never met, which I'll give him a shout out, Christian Davis. He just threw out the idea of, why don't you guys do haircuts, and then boom. And then out of that came a girl that came out of nowhere and was like, hey, I'm a hairstylist, I'll be there. And I mean, it's just amazing what, an idea can do.
I would like to take a short break for a second. We're getting some comments. I want to tell everybody that's watching. I see you seen that, John, what Jeff said. I'm not listening to the terrorist with a shirt on his face. But if you guys want to join in, I did post a link up top. That's how you joined, right, Oscar?
Yeah, that is.
All right. So you can join by that link if you guys want to join. some of the stuff that we're talking. So you guys can talk with us. Um, but that's all I wanted to say. So I'm gonna let you guys talk again. Oscar, if you want to give your perception on some of the things that we've been talking about thus far.
Well, something that resonated with me and you guys were talking was, I mean, just to throw this out there, what's going on right now is very interesting with the news, the fake news, quote unquote, and things like that. What I see happening is that the regime, that is the United States government, is realizing very quickly that their intelligence playbook is outdated. It didn't account for the rise of the information age. I mean, I just shared an article where it appears that CNN used a picture from one of the Fallout games to have a more mainstream picture for crowds about how the Russians hack us or whatever is the way the article put it. And I would almost take it as satire, but it's from Yahoo News. And we have local mainstream media outlets talking about how the CIA's bought out the Washington Post. These guys are getting called out for this in a very embarrassing way. This whole thing with the Russian hack lies, it's a colossal failure. And it's going to be coming, they're going to feel the blowback from this for a long time.
I agree. I'll say something now that I'm more trustworthy, I guess, since I got a mask on now. That makes everything better. They're definitely gonna feel repercussions. I mean, you got tactics that are being spread now throughout the internet that has politicians that they're almost gonna piss their pants. Like Black bloc is something that's happening in the Northwest right now. And what's going to happen when that catches on, when, corporate establishments are now forcing the police to protect their stuff, and the cops are like, you know what, our budget is spent because these people are so pissed off. I see it as a lose for any police department that is out there that are thinking that force is going to be their key to success. Fucking mask.
John was like, fuck that mask. It's too hot.
Well, it's one of those things to go to show you that, a guy on there's like, I'm not listening to a terrorist but I have a different mask on, and he jumps on, 5 minutes later when I have that mask on and I start talking. He might be in full agreement with me. You got to listen to the content that's coming out and not just what you're looking at.
Which goes back to Snowden, right? That's one of the things that he said is that the content of his actions is what's important. That he was trying to show the people that their government was spying on them.
And not only that they don't even follow their own protocol with whistleblowers. Like, the Espionage Act was written right at World War One, around World War One, and it's so broad that anybody that basically works in the government, if you have something on your USB drive that you accidentally put on there, they could charge you with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things that they loosely just kind of keep on everybody. Of course, they're not going to, when they bring the hammer down, they bring it down hard. I just think the whole thing has been really fascinating. I'm not one of the people that kind of worships at the altar of WikiLeaks and Snowden and those guys the way that other people do. I think that it's been a little bit, and I'm unpopular for this, a lot of people jumped right on board and said, hey, we're all for these guys, they're totally on our side and everything like that. And at first I definitely was, and the way that things have gone down with the 10-year anniversary being kind of like a commercial, more or less, and it just kind of felt as if somewhere along the line, for these guys just to stay alive, they had to get the support of possibly, another government entity. Certainly people could say, they're helping the Russians out, whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, people have to remember this is the world that we live in, and, there was a gist that I got from Julian Assange during the 10-year anniversary discussion where it kind of felt like this guy's coming to terms with, the end of his road. wants to pass the torch off to the community, get people more involved, and I'm very much looking forward to that. But there's definitely, the way they brought the hammer down on those guys and everything has been really a fascinating thing to watch.
Well, the one thing about WikiLeaks that grabbed my attention is when MasterCard, PayPal, and everybody pulled their, you couldn't donate to them. That to me, made me feel like there was potential behind their website, and that the things that they were doing, in my mind, if the government's trying to suppress you, you're usually on our side. But like with payback, which wasn't that big of a deal, but it was the people kind of standing up and saying that we needed, something needs to be done, even though I don't believe those attacks really did nothing but cost some people money. But those type of things is what is a flag to me to say that maybe at first they were about something really, really, really good. Either that or there was just secrets that weren't supposed to come out.
Absolutely agree. And typically, and I'm sure you know this, typically where they don't want you to look is exactly where we should be looking. It's just that they've been out for so long now, and there has to be more to the story now that we just can't know yet. And there's a term called keeping your powder dry. And I would think that if they didn't have something, a dead man switch or play something, they could have been off a while ago.
Well, that's probably what all of them things were sent out. There was what people were calling a dead man switch that went out to different countries, and people have keys to those or whatnot. But I mean, an establishment like that, like you said, it can only run for so long, with no government backing it, and with exposing all governments, not just our government, all governments. How do you keep that going, especially when people are pulling funding? When, I've heard, the stories of, I went through all this trouble to get this information and now they're sitting on it. And, certain, sects getting mad over that because, the danger they could go into. And then you have, Julian saying that people's, they're giving them information are the most important people to them. Well, if those people get in trouble or die and the information never gets out, then what did they do it for? And, if you're going to get it, make sure it's authentic and then get it out. Don't sit on it. And I think that's where you're going with, that they're helping certain areas, diplomatically, maybe in favor of Julian getting certain, demands that he may want for freedom.
Well, yeah, to back up what you're saying, the journalistic integrity that they handled the 10-year anniversary with was amazing to me. I mean, it was strictly professional journalism, but people had hyped up that situation. Oh, it's going to be the end of Hillary Clinton, and oh, she's going to jail, and this is the big bomb that's really going to throw her away, and all this other stuff. And they came back and they were like, whoa, 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 we didn't say that, you guys did. We just give you the information. You decide what to do with it. And they stuck to that. They stayed right on their line and did their thing, and that was the best possible thing that they could have done. Really happy to see how they handled that.
Dan, you still alive?
Yes, you guys are just doing a phenomenal job, and I rant all the time on my videos. I have a good 20 videos of just me ranting. So I mean, it's your guys' turn. Talk it out, man.
I don't know. Hey, did you hear any of my discussion about the police brutality thing or anything like that?
Not quite. I have weird thoughts about the police state right now. I mean, there's rumors about George Soros implanting people into Black Lives Matter. Just the amount of fuckery, if you will, that goes into trying to figure out what's really going on. It's not pretty. So I don't even know if I have an opinion about it quite yet, besides the fact that we should not have cops like that.
Yeah, well, I mean,
starts and ends there.
Yeah. Well, when you get a chance, man, watch back when you can. And I don't want to repeat it for everybody again, but try to watch back, because I want comments on it for sure. I'm going to actually write an article about it and try to submit it, because My big problem is I'm seeing a lot of people just invent new ways to hate one another than actually coming up with things that actually fix the process. I mean, how many times can you hear, well, they need retrained, or they need body cameras, or they need this? But, you spend $20 million on body cameras and then they have the ability to turn them off. Like, I had an actual solution. If you get a chance, check it out.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't negotiate with the Fourth Reich. Um, it's just, it doesn't turn out well. I myself have had legal troubles in the past for really petty shit, and it really is. It's a fascinating world that you go into when you do go into jail, and you realize not only do we live in a police state, the amount of institutionalization that is demanded out of people that the system can manage to grab is pretty astounding, and it's pretty pathetic because you get these. If you're ever on probation, you get this letter if you violate probation that says something about how probation has been an inadequate vessel to keep you from antisocial behavior, and it's a phrase that they've been using for like 100 years, and it makes it sound like you stabbed somebody. And a lot of people are in jail just for losing their house, violating probation because they didn't tell the probation officer that they didn't have an address. So I mean, I have a lot of thoughts about the police state, but it really is very simple to me. It's stop it. Just no. Just so much no.
Let me cross the street wherever the fuck I want.
I mean, there's a lot of, and real quick, not to cut you off, but going back to the division you were mentioning, I read a book by a retired CIA agent. So this isn't even conspiracy. I mean, if it's lies, it's lies. But he's talking about how the CIA really isn't an American entity. It's much more for the interests of foreign banking and oil. He talked about how they threw money into the counterculture movement, which I'm sure you know has more to do with the original like MAPS program back when MK Ultra was voluntary. They basically started the hippies having wanting to do things with acid, whatever. I'm forgetting the three-letter.
LSD.
Yeah, LSD. Good God. They implanted money into both sides of the civil rights movement. They started feminism, and actually, the girl that began feminism was dating J. Edgar Hoover, I believe, and just talked about so much about how these guys love to divide us so that they can compartmentalize us. And when you study political science like game theory, you realize that these people, they just split us into big categories so they can screw with us. And the bigger the categories that they can put us in, the worse the politics gets. And you saw a lot of that with this last election. Hillary Clinton supporters, please tell me why you voted for that woman other than it being because she's the first woman president. You couldn't get an answer 80% of the time.
Well, you see that. You see that, you see that now. And the thing that I always thought was really funny is when you actually watch the news, like in 2008, right? Mitt Romney lost, right? And their whole thing was, well, there's not enough white people per se for him to win because he needs, people from all other, cultures to win. But now, you come here and it like who was it? The something Grant guy on CNN said it was a white lashing, that all the white people showed up and voted. And it's like, well, what the hell? Like 8 years ago, they weren't even able to win the vote because they didn't have enough white people anymore. But now, the multiplication of white people went fucking mad in the last 8 years and they're all able to vote magically. It's all a fucking spun around game. And like you're saying, like the division, I can see it now. Remember the Democrats were the ones that were all together and they were all unified. And then Trump won, and then all of a sudden the Republicans were unified. Well, what happened then? All of a sudden the alt-right showed up. A way to separate the Republicans from each other, the alt-right. That means you can split them up. It's the oldest trick in the book. It's called divide and conquer. And it works to this day, and people just follow it blindly. It's amazing.
I'm much more worried about Democratic warhawks than I am some people in a basement somewhere yelling "Hail Hitler." And that's the thing too, is like you're talking about how this division goes sideways whenever these people get challenged. It's a very lefty thing to do. It's like they're so small-minded when thinking politically that they just can get manipulated so easily. And I was just listening to a recording that happened in the media. There was kind of a verbal scuffle where someone who worked on the Clinton campaign had claimed that the Trump campaign made a platform for the alt-right. And they're like, really? Maybe when you look at Hillary Clinton's history and you realize she's just a fucking loser, like literally she banged her way into political power, and then you go, years later, and she loses. She like limped past like an almost 80-year-old, Jewish commie, and you can't stop and think maybe you just picked the wrong candidate. You know what I mean? And that's where and when you study subversion, like the old KGB playbook, they like the left for being so easily manipulated, but once a country's subverted, they just take them out back and shoot them. Once they become disillusioned, they become rabid.
Yeah,
These lefties are so gun-ho, but they don't even realize they're walking right into the fucking furnace.
Well, that's like when people be like, well, what's your, like I was telling Dan, I'm more anarchist in me than anything. And people be like, oh, you just want to go break shit. Like, no, like I just believe in operation and cooperation instead of suppression and domination. And that's exactly what this country is, suppression and domination. You can buy a house, you still gotta fucking rent the property your whole life. Like, there is no freedom. You're never free from debt. And, operation and cooperation, I just feel like would work a hell of a lot better than some of the shit we do now.
Well, yeah, it's the only true socialism if you really want to try and use, socialism as a word without hierarchy. You know what I mean? God, I just pissed off so many anarcho-communists, but it's certainly, anarchy is not something that we can have when we create a vacuum. It's really what exists in transitional periods right now. So it's really interesting in the information age. This is probably the first and best and only time that we can hope for real anarchy. And I think that it will come from technology, and
I
probably
agree.
sooner than we would think. I mean, I didn't take, but I studied behavioral biology from a guy from Stanford who said, I think it'll be, our generation's great grandkids who start toppling governments from like the safety of their living room.
Yeah. And that's like too, like, I talk to police a lot, and we get in this argument about, then they'll be like, well, anarchy's this, anarchy's that, anarchy won't work. And then I'm like, okay, bub, but we've tried socialism, communism, capitalism. We've tried all of these except for this one, and none of them fucking work. So what's the problem of trying a different one? And the argument always stops there because they don't really have anything to say.
Yeah, well, like Ron Paul has said, we can't really critique capitalism because we haven't actually had it yet. But when you look at capitalism, it's a term coined by Karl Marx anyways. So typically, in my experience talking to anarchists, it's a term that they use for the sake of translating for retards. And it just means free markets. And then now I tend to say liberated markets because I'm waiting for someone to come out of the peanut gallery and say, hey, there's no such things as free markets, and then I want to slap them with a dictionary. So for the information age we're dealing with, for the information age, there's a lot of ignorance. All I'm saying.
Everybody out there, you better buy into Bitcoin while you can.
I am sharing this everywhere so everybody can listen to you guys talk it out. Kenyon's gonna join us soon. From what he's telling, he's gonna try not to start any arguments. He said.
Nah, we can argue all you want, bub. That's what this is all about.
Getting your voice heard. But
nowhere without disagreements.
I know. Like, people are so fucking pussified now about just talking about shit that people can't not be angry. Like, that's the beauty of the internet. Or first of all, that's the beauty of, if you're in America, like, you should be able to do that. Like you were saying, if some dude wants to be in his fucking basement and say all that shit and believe all that shit, whatever. As long as it don't affect the general public, then you're whatever. It's the land of the free. But if you come out there and start spewing that shit and hurting people, expect to get your ass whooped by some people. You don't always have freedom of speech. Doesn't mean you have to go out there and cram it down people's throats. As much as I don't, want to see Nazis running down the street telling me all this and all that, I also don't want the fucking Christians coming to my door trying to cram it down my throat, asking me about my sins. Like, you can keep your stuff to yourself and then conversate to make life better instead of just conversating about what makes you different from the other fucking person.
Yeah, it's it is the internet. We don't really need to be lonely anymore. And it's kind of like, for me, censorship is just an extension of cultural Marxism. I think it is the road to fucking Nazi Germany. So that's the thing, though, you have to remember about Anonymous, too, and all that we have going for us is that, a long time ago, at the birth of the internet, a bunch of people got together on places like B on 4chan, and they said, look, freedom of information, okay? If you don't like it, go somewhere else. It's a big internet out there. But we understand that we have an advantage, where terrorists can talk to conservatives, whatever you want to call it. Let that reign free. And let's see what happens. You know what I mean? And now that we have this censorship coming on, that's threatened. So that's it's a whole nother discussion, internet censorship, which is threatening everything we have built, Anonymous, and the ability to cause social reform on the internet. Everything we built that on.
Like with me, like my story when it comes to 4chan is more like it's what everybody says. It's the internet hate machine. It's the worst place on the internet. But with that, if you really look at it from like my point of view, what happened is there was so much hate and there was so much just horrible shit on there that for me, I became numb to it almost as a a defense mechanism now, to where I'm not offended. I can sit and talk to somebody that I think is a piece of shit in my eyes, but I can still talk to him and debate with him, like you said, on the internet, and we can hash it out, and it's no big thing. And maybe somebody learns something from the argument, maybe somebody doesn't, but that numbness is what it took for me to be able to, really hold on to what, Anon was to me, which was, this person may be doing something I don't like right now, but I can either talk to them or avoid them, so.
Right. Well, while that numbness, as you call it, may be, harshly earned, I mean, I myself have seen and learned a lot of shit that, I don't regret learning it, but it was definitely difficult to cope with and stuff like that. But all that, now that we're in more of a safe, spacey kind of leftist world, I look at that and I think, look, dude, that's just life. You know what I mean? You can't take away, people's ability just to cope with basic reality. That's robbing them of being able to mature. And while the internet offers, a place where, people that would never see something horrifying could see a whole forum full of pictures of dead kids in wartime, it's not like anybody is, like you said, shoving it down your throat. You go to these places out of curiosity, and you can choose how much and where to challenge yourself.
Yeah.
That's why I believe in the lack of censorship.
No censorship.
Never make
None.
anybody do this shit.
None. Do whatever the fuck we want.
There's absolutely no censorship here. Talk about whatever the fuck you want to talk about.
And since we're on Daniel's fucking shit, for any fucking people that are watching.
The one finger salute.
Yeah, fucking X key score Dan.
Fuck Weimers. I heard that name like yesterday, and
oh shit. I don't know. What do you want to talk about now, Dan?
Well, we went over police brutality a little bit. We went over the whistleblowers. We went over capitalism, the difference between capitalism and an economic system. What do you guys think about things that are going on, like the water crisis?
Like, you're talking about Flint?
Well, the thing is that it's not just in Flint. Over 100 cities have bad water, and it's not being fixed. And at the same time, we're sending like 58 billion to Israel, which has a fully functional military. They really didn't need that money to fight against somebody that don't have a military. So we're doing things like that at the same time as not fixing water crisis, which is causing deaths and all these other things in America. We're not taking care of our own people.
Well, I mean, first of all, I mean, the water going through all the piping and shit, that's one thing, but just the fact that we have so much fucking drugs and shit in our water too. I mean, do we even know how to fucking clean this shit properly? I mean, are we even being told, like, we have all these water processing plants, do they actually do their job? Like, nobody asked that. We're worried about the pipes. Like, the water's already being sent that way. It's just getting worse through the pipes. So, I mean, when it comes to the piping, we're fucked. Like, we chose war over our own selves. And we're gonna pay for it for a while. I mean, get yourself a fucking filter. I mean, I can't, and like I said, for a change like that, 20 million Americans got to be out in the streets, not fucking 150 protesting. You know, the no DePaul thing, that's fucking travesty what's happening. Oh, they're still trying to build that shit. You know, and the people in the states around there, you know, they should all be fucking pissed off, but they're not. And I mean, until everybody comes out and says, you know, this shit's got to be fixed or shit's going to go sour for everybody in the government, none's going to change. They're going to keep sending that money to Israel.
Yeah, it's basic priorities, and it's also, you have to remember, like, if we're going to put the spin on it where we're not taking care of our own people, you have to remember how governments think. They don't think like people, they think in terms of generations and decades. I mean, we were going to give that money to Israel probably 8 years ago. If we were really serious about alienating Israel, wouldn't we ask for our fucking money back? I mean, we give them all this money, 40 some odd, like 38 or 40 billion dollars, and then we alienate them. All right, dude, you can have that one. But then with this water crisis, I mean, it's probably worse than some quote unquote expert, you know, claimed to think it was. I mean, I don't know anything about this shit. And there's a lot of reasons for this. There's fracking going on, there's pipelines and everything else, and it's just, I mean, that's the only way to really put it into any perspective, right, is to compare it to our foreign policy. It's just lack of priorities. It is a crisis, and the fact that the news isn't covering it, I mean, there goes, you know, more distrust in the media, which, being libertarian anarchist the way I am, but yeah, exactly. But I mean, it's to the point where I almost like how bad it's gotten, because it's pushing people to the point of being like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, I always knew it was screwed up, and like, this is fucking outrageous. And well, it's also like, people are starting to realize it is that bad. Exactly. You know what I mean? I don't like things to get, how bad things have to get before they get better, but if we're going to play ball, play ball. You know, I don't know enough about it, to be honest with you. I just know it's ridiculous. You know what I mean? It's no different than us talking about some other topic like GMOs or something. I'm just not going to claim to know enough about it, other than the basic observations. It's a major fuck up.
Agreed.
Unforgivable and blatantly obvious. You would think that it's blatantly obvious, especially to the government. Really would. That things that you shouldn't do. Don't poison your own people.
Yeah, no shit.
Well, tell that to all the Desert Storm vets who are dying before they're 60. They're dropping like flies, dude. I mean, no, it's the people are becoming very disillusioned in a hurry. I mean, it's happening rapidly, and that's on our side. But what needs to go very quickly is the media, and that's what's. We have momentum in that right now, so we have that on our side. But you look at the anatomy of the state, and they need those guys. I mean, like 80% of the regime is their interaction with the media, the intellectuals on their side, so to speak. So let that fall.
and the so-called experts that they bring onto their shows. Just stop watching fucking TV. Stop it. We have the internet now. There's no need.
Speak of that, I literally don't watch the TV at all. I haven't for at least 6 years.
All my TV's turned into monitors.
Yep. I'm on my PC. I hate the TV. I hate the news, especially.
Yeah, if I'm like watching CNN or something and I like walk up to the TV and I start listening to them, I just get like this red haze.
Yeah.
And I start getting pissed off and it's time to leave.
Hello, Amanda Garnes. I seen you said hi in the comments. If you guys want, I'll read some of their comments if it helps you guys continue a conversation.
Alright, well, give me a second.
Why don't you go ahead and narrate? I have the window open, but if you want to isolate a few to talk about or anything like that.
John's deep in thought.
I can't really see any of the fucking comments. There's only let me see like 4 comments and I can't understand any of them.
Damon Franklin said, "Fuck Israel."
Well, I mean, yeah. I don't like anybody that's calling themselves the chosen people, that's for sure. I think you're just the same as me, motherfuckers. Like, you're just the same as me. Like, there's nobody that's chosen over anybody else. Like, we were all, like, everybody's dad fucked their mom and you came out of a birth canal. Like, that's just it. Like, you're the same. We shouldn't be sending you money, that's for sure. Your military is pretty badass. I mean, you have a missile defense system. I don't even think we have that. The fuck?
Yeah, I actually heard an interview, well, a debate actually, formal debate on the Tom Woods show. If you don't know who Tom Woods is, he's a fantastic historian. He does good with basically, you know, not lying to you and telling you how it really happened. ANCAP type of guy, whole shebang. But he had a debate between Zionists and somebody else, you know, giving a libertarian perspective on, you know, letting the Palestinians go, basically. And the Zionist argument for Israel to be oppressing the Palestinians is the most fucking absurd thing I've ever heard. They refuse to admit that they're doing this because they have this 2,000-year-old entitlement. So what they do is they spin the narrative of things that happened within the past several decades, and they just blatantly lie about it and get called out on it all the time. And you can even in the debate hear the Zionists getting pissed off. I mean, they have no argument at all whatsoever other than, hey, you know, we're entitled to that because it's us. You know, just settle down with your dead babies and everything else and just give us our 2,000-year-old entitlement. I don't care how small Israel is compared to the rest of the Arab world when they're talking like that. I don't care anymore. You've lost that luxury.
Well, not to mention, no matter how small they are, they'd still kick everybody's ass over there easily.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we talk about Iran being 5 years out from a nuke for the past 40 fucking years, and Israel would, like, destroy them 50 times over.
I agree. Dan, I'm getting tired, bub. I'm gonna jump off here, homie.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining and talking with us.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, man, I'll be back on anytime. Just hit me up. And for all y'all calling me a terrorist, there you go. Go fuck yourself. I'll see y'all.
Compliment.
All right, later, John. But I'm hoping more people join. I did post the link in the thread. It's also posted in on the post itself. But as we were talking, you mentioned GMOs. You know, fucking. What is your perception on things like GMOs, chemtrails? Do you really think that they're trying to depopulate the human race?
Well, on one hand, I mean, I'd have to look at a lot of numbers, but it's kind of like why, when you have everybody on a leash, would you, kill all your slaves? That's one argument. Of course, the easy economic solution, ruthless one, is to lower the amount of people that you have to share resources with. So if people want to go that route, I mean, I kind of get it. And just touching on that for a brief second, that was actually what Trump's whole immigration deportation thing was more about. If you see a collapse in a far left economy, you go to the far right and you kick a bunch of people the fuck out. So I just felt like clarifying that. But as far as GMOs go, chemtrails, I'll start on that. I'm gonna say, because I've seen interviews with and speeches by geoengineering specialists from different companies who've ended up disappeared later. And this is not really that big of a conspiracy. And really, what they're saying is their solution to the effect of negligence and their pollution is more negligence and more pollution, and they're gonna deflect the sun's heat by putting a bunch of metals in the sky. That's basically what that's the thing that I've heard the most. That sounds just like them. That I don't put that past them at all. Now, as for the GMO one, that's pretty difficult because the activists that have tried to tackle GMOs, they really kind of shot themselves in the foot. There's been a couple documentaries that have been just totally burned for being, essentially full of shit. And you can't say that all GMOs are bad. Definitely not to the extent that we should be using them. It's definitely being abused. I'm sure there's, links to cancer and all this other stuff. But, that's actually what I had in mind when I was talking about the water crisis, is saying, this is one of those things I'm not going to get too into because I just don't want to try to say I know enough about it to have a real opinion. And I feel that way about GMOs too, but there's going to be good and bad. But I think Monsanto is generally a pretty shitty and stingy company. We all get that by now.
Yeah, but I was actually going to bring that up. Monsanto, actually, a lot of them have links to the government, if not in the government themselves.
Oh my God, yeah, it was insane in the Bush and Cheney presidency. Holy shit.
Speaking of, I know you're big on politics. What is your perception on Trump being president, and how do you see our future going if you had to try to make a prediction?
I think he's going to be a horrible president. He's very authoritarian. I don't agree with hardly any of his policies at all, unless we're talking deregulation, which of course he had the sense to talk about in the debates, which is good. But when you really break it down, the guy, he's just, DNC emails came out revealing that they rigged the media to hoist Trump into the tops of the ratings of the media because they were afraid that Hillary would lose to any other Republican. That's how big of a fucking loser she is. We're talking about Ben Carson. Ben Carson just comes off as creepy, right? Mm-hmm. So you look at from that perspective, you're like, all right, well, this really is getting a little bit absurd. But at the end of the day, man, first off, we needed the right back. I've never thought I'd say that in my life, but we needed the way that the government and politics and the media especially flew to the left after Obama came into office has just been atrocious and ridiculous. I look forward to pissing liberals off for the next 8 years. But if you want to talk about, things that do and don't surprise us as he's entering into office, I made a post earlier about his cabinet picks. You got your banker, for the Treasury. You got your Goldman Sachs guy. You got some big drug warrior in. It's all the same shit, really. And there's tons of more qualified people out there. He talked about, what was it, draining the swamp?
Yeah.
Was the term that he used for trying to find people that were qualified, and that was my hope. My hope was that Trump wasn't even gonna be a president. He was just gonna hire a bunch of really good fucking people just to figure all this out for him, and then he just was Trump on TV for 8 years. But clearly that's not happening. They're playing the same games. They're sticking in people in cabinet that are just atrocious. Mitt Romney's up there. That's one of the better ones. It's a nightmare. So I can't tell you where it's going to go. I think it's going to get pretty warmongerish. But as far as foreign policy, which to me is like our biggest issue, like I think that we're going to have better relations with Russia. I think that the sanctions that have happened recently are an attempt at from the left to try and corner Trump, to try and get him blasted in the media. I think they're coming after the presidency already um, for 4 years from now by setting him up so that they'll be able to say, oh, we sanctioned Russia because they did all these hacks. And then he turns around and obviously the Russians got him into office because, he took the sanctions out, immediately as he officially stepped into office. And they're going to try and play that card on him. So I don't think that the sanctions are an act of war. I think they're a really daring and pretty shitty political jest to try and draw Trump out. And I think he's going to lower the sanctions. Now, thankfully, the whole hacking spiel and all that is falling apart on the media in a way that I think is magnificent, but I do not see a good next 8 years. I think that from a libertarian and anarchist perspective, it's going to get about just as worse as things would have been with Hillary Clinton. I just hope that, our foreign policy backs up a little bit. I hope that we deregulate markets and that we help our economy out. I really don't care for any government. I don't think the government should really do anything. So I'm excited to see what he's planning to do with Obamacare. I know he wants to repeal it, but he also wants to replace it, and that's what has me worried. But overall, I mean, I wasn't pro-Trump, but I was see more leftist politics. The only worse candidates than Hillary Clinton were Jill Stein and Bernie Sanders, because despite them being great on social issues, and by the way, Jill Stein was fantastic with foreign policy. She basically just said, get the hell out of there. Either of those, and let's just suggest that I don't think that we're in an oligarchy anyways. If we were to get Sanders or Stein, this country would have gone through an economic butt fucking of epic proportions. So I'm hoping that, more conservative appearing candidate will kind of give us the leeway we need to last another 8 years. So maybe we can have 8 years so we can have a shot at somebody who's really intending on restoring this economy.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have the economy, you don't do anything else.
Yeah.
Didn't free the slaves because they gave a shit about black people. Abraham Lincoln was actually a piece of shit. All economy at the end of the day. So that's what we need to worry about, because it's not doing good right now.
Well, yeah.
So I can't say any surety, but
yeah, well, speaking of that, you brought up Jill Stein and stuff like that. In your perception, the reason why you said that that would have been a shitstorm, in your perception, is it because she was too much of a dreamer and wanted to fix too much stuff? And let's just get rid of the corporations, and if you do like a random giant action like that, could that have led to so many more problems than it would have fixed? Because as you said, economy.
I mean, she's talking about paying for everything. I mean, but now, mind you, if you get rid of the military-industrial complex, you're damn right we'd be able to pay for it. I'll give her that credit. Problem is, you're not getting rid of the military-industrial complex, Jill Stein. It's not happening. Just like we're not paying for everybody's college or doing any of this other wacky shit that these guys are talking about. Bernie Sanders was just a propagandist. So at the end of the day, you couldn't believe anything he said. He never answered any questions about the Federal Reserve or anything like that. He would have had a Goldman Sachs guy in for the Treasury just as quick as any of these other guys. And, not only that, it's like, when has a budget deficit ever stopped these people? You're just going to put whatever you want on the fucking credit card. So, yeah, you can say that these guys are dreamers and everything like that, and they are, and sure, but when they dream that big, yeah, well, it's not so much that I don't think they can do it. I think that they're completely and utterly full of shit. We shouldn't trust a thing they say, and that to me is more dangerous than somebody who's like lying a little bit.
Dreaming
that
too.
Also makes me think they're just a plant. I don't even think they were serious necessarily.
Dreaming too big when you have so many lives on the hand, an entire country is a very dangerous thing.
Yeah, and it just at the very least, like I respected Ron Paul for getting on stage and saying, "Hey, 9/11 was our fault," and got massive boos and everything else. And yeah, he would have wanted to win, but at least he came out and he really just said it. You know what I mean? He didn't hold back, and that was what I was lacking from Bernie Sanders. It was, look, I'll start to believe you, but talk about the Fed. You know what I mean?
Give me 1 second. I do have to apologize. I am addicted to cigarettes. Amanda Garnes did bring up a very good point. I do smoke. I am addicted to them. Kids, you should never start because you do get addicted and they are bad for you. Very bad for you. They will lead to problems like pneumonia, cancer, things like that. It's not a cool thing to do. It does hurt your body. Just don't do it. It's bad. Sorry for cutting you off, but Amanda Garnes did bring up I'll try to quit smoking. That is a very good point.
Yeah, we certainly try to set examples around here, but in our defense, in saving the world, you might need a cigarette every once in a while.
Yeah.
Play devil's advocate.
Devil's advocate.
That's how you use that term, even though.
To play devil's advocate is to go against your own beliefs. That it's like me. You're talking about Trump right now, and if I was against Trump to play for Trump to go against to play devil's advocate, I would ask a question that was anti-Trump.
I got it. But yeah, it's definitely a shitstorm right now. I'm just glad that we got away from the left, at least in the media, a little bit. They're making themselves look pretty ridiculous right now.
Which I want to talk to you about. You did bring up the media. That is a very good point. How do you think that the brainwashing? I went over this in one of my streams, but how do you think it works? How do you think that the media gets you to brainwash people, to get people to do sort of like what everybody talks, ever notice it? Like, we'll be talking about something and then somebody in the group will be like somebody that always watches mainstream media. And then it's like they repeat exactly what the news said. And they didn't give any thought by themselves.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Like, there's it's called Anatomy of the State. It's an essay, that's the word I'm looking for, by Rothbard, talking about how any interaction between human beings can be judged by its initial, how it started, really. And there's never been a ruling class that has not come in and taken over another ruling class and then looked at the people and threatened them with rape and pillage and then turned around and said, hey, if you just let us rule over you, we won't rape and pillage all you people. And then they reframe it so that they're being merciful. And then from that point on, it is nothing except for a big brainwashing brigade. 80% of the ruling class, I mean, if they don't have their propaganda, they go away. And a lot of it has to do with, their interaction with the media. That is what we talk about when we say the intellectuals of the ruling class. These people, they know what they're doing. They're very aware of it. And we have, there's even that CNN woman that worked for CNN that got fired after coming out and saying basically that CNN is not an American company. It's hardly even a media company. It's basically an information trafficker, falsifying information, a propaganda machine for the highest bidder. She was talking about how, dictators around the world were paying big amounts of money for CNN to make propaganda pieces. And, they know what they're doing, and it's not necessarily what they all signed up for, but it's what keeps them above water. I mean, if you look at the numbers, the mainstream media would have died out a long time ago if they weren't getting government funding. I mean, it just isn't sustainable. So it's really, people like to give the government and the media this religious prestige, which is why people go off about, they're so defensive of the media. And it's one of those things where the conspiracy is so big and it is so belligerent and blatant that, common people just, they can't wrap their head around the fact that they've been fooled that much, and that it really does exist that way. So, it's pretty simple, really. A lot of these guys just don't, it's just their job. They just don't care. If they get into it, it's kind of like politics. If they get into it with good intentions, by the end of it, if they really had good intentions, they would have dropped out of school. You know what I mean? You become disillusioned and you realize what the game's really about. The media is just, especially mainstream media, it's just for hire. The problem is right now the alternative news and media is it's so much in its infancy that it can't always be taken seriously. And unfortunately, a lot of the really bigger and more mainstream versions of the alternative media have kind of turned over to the dark side and ended up being just kind of ridiculous. We saw that with like Snopes and other things like that. So we're at a really ugly time right now with our interaction with the media, and I struggle with it every day.
And the funny thing is JFK, which was not too long ago, actually fought for the media and the freedom of press. And how far we've fallen since then.
Well, yeah, freedom of press is just lack of, just anti-censorship. What we have now is it's just they're like information mercenaries. You know what I mean? They're no different necessarily than the defense contractors, except the war is of information.
I'm going to read what Jason Meadows said real quick. He said, "I can't stand when you wake someone up and they just regurgitate what you tell them. That's not how it's supposed to work." But in your perception, what would you say? What has been your experience with waking people up?
I mean, I have an anarchist uncle that's been anarchist for 40 years. And he tells me, and he's a very frustrated dude. I mean, he's deep down the rabbit hole. And he tells me all the time, look, you got two crowds of people. People that, it's like you're preaching to the choir, and the other half is just don't give a fuck. And you're going to end up very frustrated, and you're going to turn very few people. Now things have changed, I think, because of the internet, but if it wasn't for the rise of the information age and the unity that we have, I think my uncle would be right in that. I myself have woken up very few people. It kind of seems like I meet them, and while they don't have the information yet, they just kind of either they get it or they don't. And those people typically end up being my friends. I add them on Facebook, and then they say, "Hey, let me get involved in Anonymous," and it's kind of meant to be. I haven't and I've met people that have turned status and things like that, but I don't think it happens as often as we like to think it does. I think there's just some people that are smart enough to figure it out, and other people are just kind of predisposed to not be able to handle it, even because it is emotionally draining. It's not always easy what we do. People have life crises. Every time you become disillusioned, you go through the stages of grief, except it's not, losing a loved one or anything. Sometimes it's learning that you need to question everything that you've ever believed.
Yeah, I agree. Which is a very good point. You really do have to question everything, which leads me to what Crystal said on here after I read what Jeff said. Jeff said I should get paid for waking people up.
Damn straight. I'm right there with him. I've tried.
All of our 127.0.0.1 belong to Wait a Sec, TM. But Crystal Smith said, give people a little credit. Different people need different amounts of time. Even then, we are always prone to error. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, there's people that I absolutely adore, but they would have voted for Sanders. You know what I mean? So it's I'm no stranger to that. I have to kind of watch my mental bandwidth anymore. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna dive into a sea of liberals and try and turn them all. You know, maybe at no fault of my own, but yeah, absolutely agree with that. And that's where unity becomes the most important thing.
No,
There's stages, you know.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And then, you know, when you have been doing it for a long time, and once people reach that limit where they have been doing it a long time, it becomes quite tiring. And then the newly awakened, they tend to be very defensive to their ignorance, so to speak. They defend the crap out of their own ignorance, and they will fight you tooth and nail, even when they are wrong. And even when you try to prove it to them, they just don't want to see the proof. They don't want to see anything, and then you get into these big fights, which tires you out even more.
Yeah, and I think the best of us, the ones that are the most liquid, so to speak, in like the Bruce Lee sense of things, I think most of us who are able to let go of our cognitive dissonance the most are people who have, like myself, had moments where we were just really fucking wrong. Just so wrong. And then, you know, to have to cope with that and then go back out into that world and say, you know what, it happens, it's going to happen again. And you kind of end up feeling bad for people that get really hyped up about something that's not even a big deal to be wrong about, that really most of the world's wrong about.
Give me 1 second. I gotta type this out. Keep going if you want to talk about something else. If you have something that's on your mind, I'm gonna share the link to see if we can get more people in here communicating with us.
Yeah, go for it. Let me look at these comments then. In USA, voting doesn't count. I don't mind this guy, Jeff Kenyon. Shout out to you. Yeah, I mean, that's a weird one. Thomas Wood says that the election is the means by which the regime legitimizes itself. And that's been a weird one for me because as I transitioned into an anarchist, I couldn't really, you know, I didn't know what my stance on that was going to end up being. And I've basically come to the conclusion that, you know, elections are as legitimate as, you know, a form of marketing is. You know what I mean? All you got to do is look at the picks for cabinet that Trump made. The only difference in choices Hillary would have made is that they're Republican. So, yeah, shout out to all the people that really just noticed that we're an oligarchy, because we are. But there's just some things that you have to accept that you can't know everything about, and that void, that gray area in that issue is definitely one of them.
Yeah.
Struggle with that a lot.
By the way, for anybody that doesn't know, I am Ryan Siphon. I am watching this from my alt account on my laptop. If you want me to post the link, I have to do it from my phone. So I'm on Facebook on fucking 3 different devices right now. And on many other things. I'm surprised my bandwidth isn't taking a hit.
Copy and paste it real quick. Can I?
You should be able to.
Yeah, it's weird that looks different on video or something. I don't know.
Well, all you
Noob
guys
problems.
Noob. All you guys have to do is click the link. You'll join. You should join right in. That's how you joined in, right, Oscar? You just clicked the link. Right, you right?
Yeah, I just clicked the link and went through the typical Hangouts fuckery, and here I am.
And then you can join in, conversate with us, tell us what you guys think on these issues that we've gone over so far. So far we've been streaming, we've been up for about an hour and 20 minutes. Talking about things going on in the world, so if you guys want to. Oh, hey there, Matthew. How you doing, buddy? If you want to join in, Matthew, click the link. Come join us, talk with us. I'm surprised Jillian Gray isn't here with us. This was also, you know, partly her idea and Jeff's to do a dual stream and communicate. I got to give them shout outs as well.
Word. Are you planning to do this more often?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. If nobody's gonna join in, I might end stream unless there's something else that you want to go over. Um,
Nope, I think I'm good. Unless you see some comment you want to talk on. I've definitely had my 15 minutes of fame.
is there a topic that you guys want us to go over for the audience that is watching right now? There is a slight lag for the comments, so I have to give it a second. Can't ask a question then just end stream.
Like this guy that said I don't stream. Yeah, I know. I'm planning on a podcast someday anyways, so I'm fucked either way. It's having my face on here.
Crystal Smith said, "What are your thoughts on the Mandela effect?"
Here we go.
Here we go.
Well, it's really weird, and you can. I'm 90% sure everybody can just go and look this up right now. There's like 2 versions of the Kennedy assassination on YouTube. One with more seats in the car and one with less. There's been some really wacky shit that's been going on with that, but it's gotten to the point where I've wondered if it's a psyop also. If I was an intelligence officer and I really wanted to fuck with our community, I might put out a good amount of disinformation about, Disney movies and other things that would resonate our generation specifically, so that, maybe if someone wasn't clever enough or informed enough to pick up on this stuff, you could take a civilian, you could bring them into a room, and then you could ask them questions about the Sword and the Stone or whatever other Disney movies they fucked with or said they have, and make them think basically that they're crazy. That's the same type of techniques that you'll see in, MK Ultra and things like that, where people, it's called soft kill. So I've wondered about that too. Now, of course, you have people talking about CERN. All this stuff is, I'm not a quantum mechanic. I'm not a particle physicist. I just got to throw out there that I'm not going to 100% subscribe to some fantastical talk of splitting universes quite yet. We've seen the governments do some pretty wacky shit, but I think it's definitely possible and that it could exist. It's just right now it's too popular of a talk of the town for me to. I'd have to study particle physics really to have an opinion. It's another one of those, but I definitely understand why people are subscribing to it.
That was a very good reply or rebuttal. I'm trying to help Jeff Kenyon. Jeff Kenyon says that he could call via Facebook, which is actually I could probably make that work. I'll just split screen them on OBS. If you want to give that a shot, Kenyon.
Go for it. You're the one with the monster bandwidth.
Yeah, with my 6 megabytes per second of upload. Fucking Time Warner cable.
Hey, this laptop costs $200, so I'm not saying shit.
That is actually a really good deal. Give me 1 second.
You see it.
Oops. I gotta go Facebook. What's up, Jeff?
Okay, so we should have it working, right? Am I in voiceover yet? Oh, we're in a lag. Okay, so you can't show people where I'm calling you from.
What? So you don't? So you just want to talk? You don't want to see? No video.
Give me 1 second. You're going on mute. Get it situated so there's no more lag. Hold on. It's too late now. It's too late now because you fucked that, you asshole. Can you hear the lag? Can you hear the lag from what's playing on the TV from a viewer as opposed to the what me and you were talking
Multiple
about.
dimensions on the
Hey,
stream
Beats
right
by
now.
Dre, if you can hear this.
That was trippy.
Yeah, it might be because we're using two different applications. We're using Google Hangouts and Facebook to call. Because right now I'm trying to communicate with Google and then at the same time communicate with Facebook.
He was talking earlier. I couldn't hear him. Is that going to be a problem?
But this is a Facebook live
I can
stream.
take my leave, and you know what I mean. I've been on plenty long enough. That would allow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That could be a problem.
Yeah, I can hear that lag.
You know what I mean? I've been on plenty long enough.
Okay, so hey, when I'm
me
speaking
your
to the
hand.
microphone right now, in approximately 39 seconds after I say this, I will hear it on another feed.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to work out the kinks with that, or you could just join the Google Hangouts, because we're hearing you anyways.
Can you hear it, right? Danny, if you open your other account on your mobile that is not using your PC and we talk mobile to mobile via Messenger, and you keep it close to where your mic is, it should run at real time.
Oh, so you want me to answer the call on my messenger?
On your mobile that is not using your PC and we talk mobile to mobile via Messenger, and you keep it close to where your mic is, it should
Trying to work out the kinks. Sorry, guys.
Want me to answer the call on my messenger?
Yeah, it's getting confusing for me as well because I'm talking to you and I'm trying to hear you on the live conversation, and the other networks that are going on that the feed is like delayed by, it echoes. So
Just join the Google Hangouts, fucker.
no, can't do that. There's a reason why I'm doing the mobile to mobile messenger. That's why you use your other account.
Crowd just learned that you're also the producer.
Yes. Well. Huh. Well, I could try this. Freaking, I'll call you through Messenger.
Yeah, call. Listen, just put your mobile, the other account that you use. Log
Logs
into your
on, we
other
can
one,
add him to
and
the
just
call.
call me via Messenger this account, and then keep it by where your mic is, and we should be able to run real time.
All right.
Okay? Yeah, because
Alright.
now what I just said to you 39 seconds later is being relayed on the TV. So
Alright.
if I can keep it all real time, you know what I mean, then it'll work. So try it out, call me back when you get your thing situated. Go to a commercial break or something, I don't know.
I got a commercial break.
Okay, figure it out from your mobile and then call me.
All right.
Goodbye.
Later, Jeff. So, commercial break. Well, if anybody else wants to join in, I did post the link. So, Oscar, were you what do you think how that would work? So pretty much I'm calling him from my messenger, and then I'm gonna put my phone next to the mic, and then that should work.
Phone next to the what? So he's
So you could hear him. Cause I don't have my the voice client or the voice meter thing that I have. That I used to have this voice, or I still have it, voice meter I think it was called, where it channels and I could put a lag on everything. You know, so I can try to get them to equal up. But I don't have that on right now. I just figured we'd all join in Google Hangouts. But he can't do that, so
he can't get on Hangouts at all.
no. So it makes it a little more difficult.
I would just try to redo the whole call on Facebook Messenger. I mean, you're gonna want everybody on the same client if possible, and having your phone next to the mic or whatever that nonsense was is just gonna be angry, Probably.
Probably, yeah. That's what I was thinking.
Sounds like a nightmare.
That is a nightmare. Very confusing nightmare. Well, the problem with doing it on Messenger, though, that's why I wanted to do it on this Google Hangouts, is because Messenger, you can live on your phone, but I can't cast it to OBS, which is on my PC. If I do live individually on my phone and then try to start a group call, it's not exactly the same thing.
I don't even know what OBS is.
Open broadcast system. Right now I'm using, technically I'm my own news station from my PC. I'm using all the resources, my CPU, graphics card, RAM, bandwidth.
Got it.
In order to broadcast to the world, which allows me to do a lot of cool things. I could stream video games at the same time as having me on the screen with a video capture device. I could do a lot of different things with it.
Well, that's your call, producer.
I cut myself earlier on my freaking green screen. My finger hurts.
Cut yourself on a green screen? Is that considered a paper cut?
Yes. Technically, it is a paper cut.
Sounds like a paper cut that could decapitate a person.
But I was thinking that I'll probably end stream for now till I get all the kinks worked out.
That sounds appropriate.
So I want to thank everybody for joining in. I was also supposed to do a Minecraft stream today because I did promise that I would do a Minecraft stream. So I might end up doing that. But I will work on the kinks, and if we pick up these conversations, then more than most likely tomorrow, if more people want to join in, get comfortable, feel free, get your voice heard. You don't have to be scared or not. You don't have to show your face. You can keep your camera off if you want to. I don't care. But we can hear you still. You can talk to us. Use a voice client for all I care. Use text to speech online and talk to us that way. If you want to. But I want to thank you all for joining.
I'll regret that later.
Probably. Everybody's going to come on here with touch to talk or whatever it's called, text to speech. And then it's going to take them forever to reply to comments. But I want to thank you guys for watching. I want to thank you, Oscar Knight and John, for joining me today and getting into these conversations with me. And making your voice heard. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. Been a pleasure.
All right. Everybody have a
All right.
have a good new 2017.
Deuces.
Peace.